First Contact's Price. Dr. Elena Santos walked through the crystalline corridors of the Archean Confederation's primary research facility on Europa, her footsteps echoing against the translucent walls. The alien architecture still took her breath away, even after 6 months of working alongside humanity's first extraterrestrial allies. Above her, Jupiter's massive form dominated the view through the transparent ceiling, its swirling storms a constant reminder of how far humanity had come since the Archons arrived 3 years ago. Her daughter Sophia's laughter echoed from one of the adjacent laboratories, bringing a smile to Elena's face. At 12, Sophia had adapted to life on Europa, with the resilience only children seemed to possess. While most families remained on Earth, Elena had insisted on bringing her daughter when offered the position as humanity's lead researcher in the technology exchange program. The Archons had agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to study human family dynamics. The laboratory doors slid open with a whisper, revealing a scene that would have been impossible just a few years ago. Sophia sat cross-legged on the floor alongside a young Archon named Vextal, their hands hovering over a holographic display, showing the complex quantum structures they used for computation. The Archon's crystalline form shifted colors in patterns that Elena had learned to recognize as excitement. "Mom." Sophia beamed, her dark eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Vextal is showing me how they store memories in quantum matrices. It's like our computers, but they use actual quantum states instead of just simulating them." Elena felt a surge of pride. Her daughter had inherited her fascination with science, but more importantly, she represented the future they were building, one where humans and aliens could learn from each other as equals. The Archons had arrived peacefully, offering to help humanity advance beyond the solar system, and for 3 years, that promise had held true. "The child shows remarkable aptitude," Vextal observed, their crystalline form pulsing with soft blue light. "Her neural patterns are intriguing. Unlike anything we've observed in other species." Something in the Archon's tone made Elena pause. After months of working with them, she'd learned to notice subtle variations in their harmonic speech. This wasn't mere scientific curiosity. There was an undertone she couldn't quite place. "Hi, Researcher Santos," a melodic voice called from behind her. Elena turned to find Archminister Zira, the facilities director, floating in the doorway. The senior Archon's crystalline form towered over her, refracting light in complex patterns. "Might we speak privately?" Elena glanced at Sophia, who was already back to studying the holographic display with Vextal. "Of course, Archminister." They moved to a private chamber where the crystalline walls shifted to complete opacity. Zira's form pulsed with what Elena had come to recognize as their equivalent of a contemplative sigh. "We've made a discovery regarding human neural architecture," Zira began, their harmonics carefully modulated. "Specifically, in developing minds like your daughter's, there are patterns we've never encountered before, patterns that suggest capabilities beyond anything we anticipated." Elena felt a chill despite the chamber's regulated temperature. "What kind of capabilities?" "Your species' consciousness isn't merely biological. There's a quantum aspect we've only begun to understand. In children, particularly, these patterns are still forming, creating possibilities that—" Zira paused, their crystalline surface rippling. "The Confederation has protocols for such discoveries." "Protocols?" Elena's scientific curiosity warred with a mother's instinct. "What kind of protocols?" "We believe human neural development must be contained, studied under controlled conditions. The Confederation requests custody of select human children for detailed analysis. Your daughter's patterns are particularly promising." The temperature seemed to drop further as Elena processed the words. "Custody? You're talking about taking our children?" "A temporary arrangement," Zira assured her, but their harmonics had shifted to a frequency that made Elena's teeth ache. "The Confederation has extensive experience in guiding developing species. This is a standard procedure." Elena took a step back, her mind racing. 3 years of cooperation, of apparent friendship, suddenly cast in a different light. And if we refuse, the exchange program's continuation would need to be reevaluated. Zyra's form pulsed with colors Elena had never seen before. Surely you understand the potential risks of uncontrolled development. A scream cut through the air. Sophia's scream. Elena was moving before she consciously registered the sound, bursting out of the chamber and sprinting back toward the laboratory. The doors were sealed, but through the translucent walls, she could see Sophia struggling as two larger Archons held her in a containment field. Vextol stood nearby, their form pulsing with what might have been regret. Protocol dictates swift action when exceptional patterns are identified. Zyra's voice came from behind her. Your daughter will be well cared for in the Confederation's developmental facilities. Elena slammed her hand against the laboratory door, but her access had been revoked. Through the wall, Sophia's eyes met hers, wide with fear and confusion. Mom, this is not a request. High Researcher Santos, Zyra continued. The Confederation has determined that human neural development must be guided properly, for the safety of all species. In that moment, as Elena watched her daughter being dragged away by creatures she had thought were friends, something fundamental shifted in her understanding of the universe. The Archons hadn't come to Earth as allies. They had come as zookeepers, studying humanity like specimens in a cosmic laboratory. And now they wanted to take their children. What the Archons didn't know, what no one beyond a select few on Earth knew, was that humanity had not been idle during these 3 years of supposed cooperation. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in secret facilities shielded from Archean sensors, humans had been preparing for exactly this kind of betrayal. As Elena watched helplessly while her daughter disappeared into the depths of the facility, her hand slipped into her pocket, fingers finding the quantum communicator hidden there. A single press would send a signal that would change everything. She thought of all the other human children who might face the same fate, of the arrogance that led these crystalline beings to think they could simply take what they wanted. Her finger pressed the button. Somewhere in the darkness between worlds, humanity's hidden fleet stirred to life. The Archons were about to learn that some specimens bite back. The silent ascent. General Sarah Chen stood in the heart of Project Ascendant, deep beneath the Martian surface. The vast chamber hummed with the combined power of 1,000 quantum cores, each one representing a technological leap that humanity had carefully hidden from their allies. On the massive holographic display before her, a single dot pulsed on Europa, the emergency signal they'd hoped never to receive. Status report, she commanded, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. Around her, officers moved with practiced precision, their neural interfaces glowing softly as they communicated with the facility systems. Dr. Santos's signal confirmed. General, Colonel Marcus Way reported, his hands dancing over the quantum interface. They've taken her daughter, along with 6 other children from the research station. The Archons are implementing what they call Protocol 47, mandatory collection of developing human minds for study. Sarah's jaw tightened. For 3 years, they had watched and waited, building their strength while maintaining a careful facade of technological dependence. The Archons had shown them carefully selected pieces of advanced technology, never suspecting that humans had already discovered something far more significant. "Show me Ghost Fleet," she ordered. The holographic display shifted, revealing hundreds of ships hidden in the spaces between normal spacetime. Unlike the crude vessels humanity showed their alien visitors, these ships were built around an entirely new understanding of consciousness and quantum mechanics. Dr. James Morrison, the project's lead scientist, stepped forward. His neural interface pulsed with a soft blue light as he connected to the facility systems. The integration is at 99.9% efficiency. Every ship in the fleet is fully synchronized with their quantum cores and crew consciousness matrices. What the Archons had discovered in human children, the quantum aspects of human consciousness, was only the surface. Project Ascendant had taken it further than any alien race had imagined possible. They hadn't just studied the quantum nature of consciousness. They had learned to merge it with their technology in ways that transformed both. "Begin Phase 1," Sarah ordered. Throughout the facility, thousands of crew members lay in integration chambers, their consciousness merging with their ship's quantum cores. Unlike traditional neural interfaces, this wasn't simple control. It was true synthesis. Each ship would become an extension of its crew's collective consciousness, operating with both human creativity and quantum computational speed. On the main display, the signal from Europa flashed again. Sarah thought of Elena Santos, one of the few scientists who knew about Project Ascendant, now watching helplessly as her daughter was taken. Time to emergence. "Ghost Fleet will be ready in 6 hours, Marcus reported. "The Archons still have no idea we've even developed quantum computing, let alone consciousness integration technology. Their sensors are calibrated to detect traditional energy signatures." Sarah nodded, remembering the day they'd made their breakthrough. While the Archons thought they were teaching humanity basic quantum mechanics, human scientists had discovered something unprecedented, a way to use the quantum properties of consciousness itself as a computational medium. Every ship in the Ghost Fleet was essentially a hybrid entity, part machine, part collective human consciousness. "Send word to our agents in the other alien research stations," she commanded. "All human personnel are to be ready for immediate extraction once we begin. And get me a direct link to Dr. Santos." The quantum communicator hummed to life, creating a connection that the Archons couldn't detect. Elena's voice came through, tight with controlled fear. "They're taking them to something called the Development Complex on Titan. Zyra says more children will be collected from other research stations within the week." "Hold your position, Doctor," Sarah responded. "The Ghost Fleet is awakening. When it hits the Europan facility, be ready to move. We'll get Sofia back." As the communication ended, Sarah turned to the assembled command staff. "The Archons think they're dealing with a primitive species they can manipulate and study. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Humanity didn't just catch up to their level of technology. We've surpassed it." Throughout the solar system, hidden quantum sensors began detecting subtle changes in the fabric of reality. The Ghost Fleet was stirring, each ship a perfect fusion of human consciousness and quantum technology. In 6 hours, the Archons would learn that their supposed research subjects had become something far more dangerous than they could imagine. In her integration chamber, Sarah's consciousness began merging with the flagship's quantum core. Around her, thousands of crew members did the same, their minds joining in a vast network that transcended normal spacetime. The ships weren't just vessels. They were extensions of human will, powered by the very thing the Archons had sought to study and control. As her awareness expanded into the quantum systems, Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. The Archons had wanted to study human consciousness. Instead, they were about to experience its full power firsthand. The sleeping giant they had tried to cage was about to show them why humanity had spent 3 years preparing in silence. The Ghost Fleet was awakening, and with it, humanity's time of hiding was coming to an end. Breaking chains. Europa's crystalline research facility shimmered under Jupiter's eternal gaze. Inside, Archminister Zira observed the 7 human children through quantum glass containment fields, their neural patterns dancing across monitoring displays. The patterns were unlike anything the Confederation had encountered in 10,000 years of guiding developing species, complex quantum fluctuations that shouldn't be possible in biological systems. "The transport to Titan is ready," Archminister Vextol reported, their crystalline form dimmed with what might have been uncertainty. "Though I must note, the human parents' emotional responses were more extreme than our models predicted." "Irrelevant," Zyra dismissed. "Primitive species often display irrational attachment behaviors. Once we've properly guided these children's neural development, they'll understand the necessity of our intervention." The facility's quantum sensors chimed suddenly, a cascade of alerts flooding their consciousness networks. Zyra's form shifted in surprise as space itself seemed to ripple around Europa. Where there had been nothing moments before, ships began to appear, hundreds of them, materializing like ghosts made solid. These weren't the crude vessels humans used for their solar system travel. These ships were something else entirely, their hulls seeming to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. The Archon's sensors couldn't get clear readings. It was as if the ships were there and not there at the same time, their very existence challenging the laws of physics as the Confederation understood them. Impossible. Zyra breathed, their crystalline form vibrating with alarm. Their technology level was assessed just months ago. They barely understand basic quantum mechanics. Transmission cut through all their communication channels, broadcasting in perfect harmonic speech. The voice was General Sarah Chen's, but it carried otherworldly overtones, as if multiple consciousness were speaking in perfect synchronization. This is the human ghost fleet to all Archon facilities. You have taken our children under the presumption that we are a primitive species requiring guidance. That presumption ends now. Return them, withdraw your forces from our solar system, and we may yet avoid conflict. Zyra's form pulsed with indignation. This is some kind of deception. A primitive holographic trick. They turned to their command staff. Launch the defense fleet. Show these humans the futility of challenging the Confederation. The Archon defense ships emerged from their quantum docks, their crystalline hulls glowing with accumulated power. They were the pride of the Confederation fleet, vessels that had subjugated a dozen species who had dared to resist guidance. Energy weapons powered up, targeting the human vessels. What happened next defied explanation. The Ghost Fleet moved in ways that should have been impossible, their quantum state hulls allowing them to exist in multiple positions simultaneously. Archon weapons fire passed through empty space as the human ships seemed to dance between moments of time. Each vessel moved with perfect coordination, as if guided by a single vast consciousness. Their neural patterns, Vextal exclaimed, studying the sensor readings. The ships, they're not just controlled by humans. They're merged with them. The quantum fluctuations we detected in their children. They've weaponized it. Inside the flagship of the Ghost Fleet, Sarah Chen's consciousness expanded through the quantum networks connecting the entire fleet. She could feel every ship, every crew member, their minds linked in ways the Archons had never imagined possible. What they had discovered in human children wasn't just an interesting anomaly. It was the key to transcending the barriers between mind and machine. Final warning. Sarah broadcasted, her voice carrying the weight of thousands of linked consciousness. Release the children. Withdraw your forces, or witness what humanity has become while you thought you were teaching us to crawl. The Archon ships launched a coordinated attack, their energy weapons transforming space into a web of destructive force. But the Ghost Fleet moved through impossible geometries, existing in quantum superposition that let them be everywhere and nowhere. Human vessels phased through solid matter, appeared inside Archon shields, and struck with weapons that operated on principles the Confederation had never conceived. Inside the research facility, Elena Santos felt the quantum vibrations through her hidden neural interface. The Ghost Fleet's arrival had activated dormant systems throughout the facility, including the quantum core she had secretly installed months ago. As chaos erupted outside, she made her move. The containment fields around the children flickered as Elena's quantum hack interfered with their systems. Sophia and the other children looked up in surprise as their prisons dissolved. "Mom, run," Elena commanded, her neural interface connecting her to the facility's systems in ways the Archons never suspected humans capable of. Emergency doors slammed shut, cutting off crystalline security forces as she led the children toward the hidden quantum teleporter she had prepared for exactly this scenario. Above Europa, the battle reached its crescendo. The Ghost Fleet hadn't just matched Archon technology. They had transcended it. While the Confederation had spent millennia making incremental advances, humanity had made a fundamental leap in understanding the relationship between consciousness, quantum mechanics, and reality itself. The Archon Defense Fleet, pride of the Confederation, didn't just lose. They found themselves unable to comprehend what they were fighting. How do you combat ships that could exist in multiple states of reality? How do you defeat weapons guided by collective human consciousness operating at quantum speeds? As the last Archon ship fell silent, Sarah's voice echoed through the facility. You thought you found something interesting in our children's minds, something you could study and control. What you actually discovered was just the surface of what humanity has become. We are not your specimens. We are not your students. And we are no longer hiding what we can do. Through the facility's windows, Zyra watched their invincible defense fleet drift powerless through space, disabled by technology they couldn't even understand. For the first time in their long existence, they felt something new. Fear of a species that had surpassed them while they weren't looking. Quantum awakening. The HFY Council chamber on their homeworld of Crystallis hung suspended in the void, its crystalline spires refracting starlight into countless rainbow patterns. Inside, panic had replaced the usual ordered serenity. The quantum feed from Uraba showed scenes that shattered 10,000 years of Confederation certainty. Their most advanced fleet, defeated by a species they had classified as barely space-capable. High Counselor Valthin's form pulsed with agitation as they addressed the emergency session. The humans haven't just developed quantum technology. They've weaponized their own consciousness in ways our scientists thought impossible. The neural patterns we detected in their children weren't an opportunity for study. They were a warning we failed to understand. Through the quantum networks connecting the Ghost Fleet, Sarah Chen watched the Council's deliberations. The consciousness-enhanced capabilities that had let humanity bypass Archon defenses also gave them access to the Confederation's most secure communications. Every ship in the fleet functioned as an extension of their collective will, processing information at quantum speeds. They're mobilizing their main battle fleet, Colonel Wei reported through the quantum link, his consciousness merging with the tactical networks. 7,000 ships, converging on Sol from all corners of Confederation space. They mean to make an example of us. Sarah's awareness expanded through the fleet's quantum matrix. She could feel Alina and Sophia safely aboard one of their ships, along with the other rescued children. Their neural patterns pulsed with the same quantum potential that had allowed humanity to make its great leap forward. Let them come, Sarah responded, her thoughts carrying to every crew member through their shared consciousness space. Humanity spent 3 years preparing not just for a battle, but for a revolution. The Ghost Fleet moved into position around Earth, their quantum state hulls rippling with possibilities. Each ship was a hybrid entity, human consciousness and advanced technology working in perfect harmony. But they weren't just weapons. They were proof that the Archon's entire approach to guiding developing civilizations was fundamentally flawed. Far below, in Project Descendant's Martian facility, Dr. Morrison connected to the quantum network with urgent news. The quantum wake of our ship's emergence has had an unexpected effect. Other species under Confederation control are detecting it, recognizing it. The neural patterns the Archons found so interesting in humans, they exist in varying degrees across all conscious species. We were just the first to understand how to use them. Through the quantum networks, Sarah could feel the ripples of change spreading across Confederation space. The Archon's carefully maintained hierarchy was crumbling as other species began to recognize their own untapped potential. The very technology the Confederation used to maintain control was now broadcasting proof of their failures. They're not just coming to punish us, Sarah realized, sharing her insight through the fleet consciousness. They're coming to try to contain this revelation before it spreads further, before every species they've ever guided realizes what they've been denied. The first wave of the Confederation fleet emerged from quantum space, their crystalline ships forming a lattice of light around the solar system. Their numbers were overwhelming, their technology the product of millennia of advancement. But they were about to learn that quantity meant little against an enemy who had fundamentally changed the rules of reality. Through the quantum link, Alina's voice reached Sarah. The children's neural patterns, they're stabilizing, adapting to the quantum field. What the Archons saw as something to study and control, we've turned into humanity's greatest strength. The Confederation fleet launched their attack, tens of thousands of energy beams converging on the Ghost Fleet's position. But humanity's ships existed in quantum superposition, probability clouds that turned certainty into suggestion. You couldn't hit what existed in multiple states of reality simultaneously. The Ghost Fleet's response demonstrated the true power of consciousness-enhanced quantum warfare. Ships phased through normal space, their human crews operating as unified quantum entities. Traditional tactics meant nothing against vessels that could process probability itself, choosing the most advantageous outcome from infinite possibilities. Look at their formation, Colonel Wei observed through the network. They still think in linear terms: space, time, cause and effect. They never understood that consciousness itself could be the key to transcending those limitations. The battle unfolded across multiple layers of reality, human quantum ships dancing through probability spaces the Archons couldn't even perceive. Each engagement demonstrated the fundamental truth that had shattered the Confederation's power. True advancement came not from controlling and guiding other species, but from letting them discover their own paths to evolution. Through it all, Sarah kept part of her consciousness connected to the quantum feeds from across Confederation space. Species after species was awakening to their own potential, recognizing the quantum patterns in their own consciousness that the Archons had either missed or deliberately ignored. "We're not just fighting for humanity," Sarah broadcasted to the fleet. "We're fighting to end 10,000 years of suppressed potential." The Archons thought they were guiding developing species. Instead, they were holding back the natural evolution of consciousness itself. The battle for Sol became more than a fight for human independence. It became a testament to what species could achieve when allowed to develop without restraint, to explore the full potential of their own consciousness. The Archons had created their own nightmare, not just a single species that had surpassed them, but the awakening of every race they had ever tried to control. Humanity's Ghost Fleet, born from the very qualities the Archons had sought to study and contain, now stood as proof of their fundamental error. The age of guidance was ending. The age of awakening had begun. Dawn of consciousness. The great crystalline dome of the HFY Council chamber shimmered with unprecedented patterns as representatives from 100 species gathered, their forms ranging from crystalline to energy to organic. At the center, where once only HFY counselors had stood, General Sarah Chen's consciousness-enhanced form projected from the quantum field, a bridge between physical and quantum reality. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Sol, where humanity's Ghost Fleet had demonstrated the true potential of consciousness-integrated quantum technology. The Confederation's mighty armada hadn't just been defeated, it had been transcended, their weapons and tactics rendered obsolete by ships that could navigate probability itself. The age of guidance is over. Sarah's voice resonated through quantum space, reaching every mind in the chamber. But this is not about replacing one form of control with another. Humanity didn't develop this technology to become the new Archons. We developed it to prove what every species is capable of when allowed to evolve naturally. In the quantum observation deck of the human flagship Prometheus, Elena Santos watched the proceedings with Sophia at her side. Her daughter's neural patterns now pulsed in harmony with the quantum field, like those of all the children who had been slated for Archon development. What the Confederation had seen as something to be controlled had become the key to a new form of existence. "The patterns are spreading, Mom," Sophia observed, her consciousness touching the quantum networks that now connected sympathetic species across the galaxy. "Everyone's awakening to their own potential, just like we did." Through the quantum link, Dr. Morrison's consciousness joined the conversation. The Archon's greatest mistake wasn't in trying to control other species. It was in failing to recognize that consciousness itself is the most fundamental force in the universe. Every species has its own unique quantum signature, its own path to awakening. In the council chamber, Valathan, now speaking as an equal rather than a superior, addressed the assembly. "For 10,000 years, we believed we were guiding developing species toward enlightenment. We never understood that our guidance was actually suppression, our control a barrier to true evolution. The quantum feeds showed similar scenes playing out across Confederation space. Species that had been classified as primitive or developing were discovering their own forms of consciousness technology integration. Some, like the energy-based quantum collective, were already approaching human levels of advancement. Others were taking their first steps into quantum consciousness, but doing so on their own terms. "This is why we hid our true capabilities," Sarah explained to the assembly. "Not just to protect ourselves, but to demonstrate a fundamental truth. The path to advancement can't be guided or controlled. It must be discovered, uniquely, by each species according to their own nature." Through the quantum network, Colonel Wei reported from the edges of former Confederation space. "The awakening is accelerating. Even species we haven't contacted are beginning to sense the quantum potential in their own consciousness. It's like the universe itself is coming alive." In orbit around Earth, the Ghost Fleet had transformed from a military force into a symbol of possibility. Ships that had once hidden in quantum shadows now served as beacons, broadcasting the quantum frequencies that helped other species recognize their own potential. The technology that had been developed for war was now being used to heal the damage caused by millennia of suppressed evolution. The Archons asked to study our children because they sensed something unique in human neural patterns. Elena addressed the council, her consciousness joining Sarah's in the quantum projection. What they didn't understand was that those patterns weren't unique to humans. They were just more visible in our children because we hadn't learned to hide them yet. Sophia stepped forward, her young consciousness touching the quantum field with natural grace. "We're all connected," she said, her voice carrying the simple truth that the Confederation had missed in their quest for control. "Not because someone taught us to be, but because that's how consciousness works. We just had to remember how to feel it." The assembly watched in wonder as Sophia demonstrated what the Archons had feared, the natural evolution of consciousness interfacing with quantum reality. But instead of chaos or danger, they saw harmony. Instead of a threat to be controlled, they witnessed the birth of something beautiful. "This is the real legacy of Project Ascendant," Sarah declared. "Not the ships, not the weapons, but the proof that every species carries within them the potential for transcendence." The Ghost Fleet wasn't just humanity's defense, it was a wake-up call to a galaxy that had forgotten how to dream. As the council session concluded, new agreements were forged. Not treaties of control or guidance, but accords of mutual respect and shared discovery. The Archons would share their vast knowledge, but no longer as teachers, as fellow students of a universe that had more to teach than they had ever imagined. In the quantum spaces between moments, humanity's ships continued their patrol of the solar system. But they were no longer hiding, no longer preparing for war. They had become beacons of possibility, reminding every species that looked upon them of a fundamental truth. Consciousness, in all its forms, was the true force that moved the universe. And in a garden on Europa, now transformed into a place of learning rather than control, Sophia played with children from a dozen species. Their neural patterns danced in the quantum field, each unique, each beautiful, each contributing to a harmony that the Archons, in all their wisdom, had never imagined possible. The age of guidance was over. The age of awakening had begun. And in the quantum spaces between stars, consciousness itself was remembering how to dance.